Hey, so remember when everyone said that arcades died in like friggin' 2001 or something because Crazy Taxi was on the Dreamcast? Well, they're friggin' wrong, and arcades is sick, so let's friggin' talk about it and stuff. This was a very poorly planned out video and intro, let's do it.
Part 1.
Okay, so, in the UK, right, if you're up north, go to Arcade Club. They have 3 different locations, Bury, Leeds, Blackpool, they're all good, but Bury's technically the best one, but like, all of them are good, they're good starting points, they're free to play, basically go with that. In addition, there's also Flashback in Bradford, that's a really cool little alternative place, definitely worth visiting if you're like nearby. Okay, Midlands, go to Arcade Warehouse, they're like the only good place. In Lincoln, that's like pretty good as a stopgap in between the north and the south. They have a few room games, they're pretty neat. Okay, main part is freaking London. There's a lot of stuff in London. There's like 5 big, good arcades, each with their own specialty, each with their own reason to make it worth going to them, and there's like 3 more on top of that that are neat little novelties. There's so much stuff to go to. But like if you need one location, go to Free Play City. They have basically every game. They're paid entry with every game on Free Play, and they're open from like 1 PM to like 11 PM on a Saturday. Just go there if you need one place and you don't mind going out of your way. But if you're like don't have a lot of time or don't want to go out to middle of nowhere, Las Vegas, Soho, in Soho, they're really good. They have most games, they have a great community there, and it's very accessible. Literally, right in the middle of Soho, you probably already know it if you're in London.
Part 1.25.
Very quickly, I'm going to highlight everything else. If you're in the US, then go to Round 1. They will have basically everything, and they'll be on the official network. It'll be the most legit setup possible, and it will be freaking great. For the most part, there are some caveats. And if you don't have a Round 1 location, Dave & Buster's will be alright. They'll have a few games. If not, there's a bunch of cool little local independent stuff, but I'll get into finding those in a minute. And in other countries, either you'll have like 1 or 2 independent arcades that are really cool and take a good care of their cabs, but like their stuff will be older and maybe not as ideal. Or you'll have like mainstream stuff, you'll be able to find it easily, it'll be well ran, but the cabs may not be maintained as well, but it's pretty good.
Part 1.5.
And if you want like a map that shows places so you don't have to like go walking around, the website Xenius iVanisher has a dumpster fire forum and a really good location finder. Yeah, basically you can legit just hit a button and then there you go. That's everything. There's all the arcades, it has the games, it has the location, pricing, condition, basically anything you need to know. The information can sometimes be outdated or false, but like it's the only one there. It's a pretty good database. I'd say it is worth looking at if you need to find locations.
Part 2.
Okay, so I said earlier how like arcades aren't dead. I was only sort of being true there. Basically, rhythm games are the things keeping arcades alive. Racing games kind of died out 10, 15 years ago. Like, in some locations they're still alive and you can play them, that's great, but like, where I am, in London, and also in the US, it's going to be rhythm games. Pretty much just rhythm games. So, it's very convenient that I friggin' like rhythm games, so let's talk about them. Okay, so for a beginner game, I'd say play Whacker. It's unfortunately going offline soon, probably already is by the time this video has come out, but it's still very good and a good introduction lesson, kind of, to rhythm games, while still being a fun game with a decently high skill ceiling. Its song list is pretty big, lots of Japanese songs you'll have heard on YouTube at some point, decent amount of like cool stuff like that, and the gameplay, very self-explanatory. You can look at it and be like, okay, I know what's going on. It doesn't require a lot of thought or explanation, which makes it a great beginner game. And starting off is pretty easy as a result, so I'd say yeah, if you want a beginner game, play Whacker. While Whacker is my personal endorsement as this is the first game you should play, it's far from ubiquitous. In the UK, there's like 1 cab, and it's not super common in quite a few other countries. In the US it is, so I'd say if you go to Round 1, it's a pretty good starter game. But here's some other stuff in case you don't have Whacker nearby. Friggin' dance games, right? DDR, Pump It Up. They are pretty decent because you will find a cab. They are the most common rhythm games, especially because they have wide distribution. You often don't even need to import them, they're just there. In the UK right now, there's a lot of DDR cabs just coming in, and a lot of really old ones. Pump It Up is common in London, and a lot of other places around the world, you will find Pump It Up cabs. These games are pretty good to start off with because they're not too complicated with their mechanics, especially at the beginner level. They're designed to be beginner friendly, and they have very big song lists. If you're into K-pop, play Pump It Up. If you're into regular pop, J-pop, rhythm game stuff, Freaking, if you want a nice varied song list, play DDR. They're both great games, though. I definitely recommend getting into them, especially because the communities are really big, freaking sick. There's even tournaments. Go play those. One last game to highlight, Dance Rush. It's pretty uncommon in Europe, but in like Asia and the US, it's somewhat common across arcades. You'll probably find one. It's really freaking fun. It's not traditional at all. It is designed to dance on. It is designed as a style game, but I freaking love styling, man. It is a great game, and I'd say arguably the easiest, because the charts aren't designed to be complex. They're designed to be simple, so that way you can dance on them. However, obviously not everyone's a freaking dancer, and not everyone wants to be, so I can understand you may rather just play a traditional hand-based rhythm game, nothing feet-based, which is totally fair. So, here's the next thing, the next part, let's do it.
Part 2.
From there, like 90% of rhythm games you'll find in arcades are still decently beginner-friendly. Honestly, I'd say I highlight these games specifically. If you don't know where to start, pick one of those. But if you do, if you see a cab and you're like, that looks really cool, I want to play that one, honestly, go for it. I think most of them are okay. The curve of the difficulty will vary between them, and just the difficulty in general will vary. But I'd say, overall, just go for whichever one looks the coolest to you and you want to play, because ultimately, you play the games that you enjoy. Not everyone is going to like every game. Although there is one game to highlight, Beatmania 2DX. I freaking love that game. It's a great game. It's like the biggest in Japan for a reason, and it has been going for like 20 plus years for a reason. But it's also very hard. You will spend hours on hours learning the layout, and then from there, it takes a few more hours until like it actually gets fun. Just simply put, learning that game is a process, and it's worth doing, but not your first rhythm game. It will demoralize you, it will put you off, and I don't want that to be your first impression, because you may think every game's like that, or it may just put you off so bad. I don't think you should do that. It's a great game as your second or your third game, or once you're already into it. Don't make it your first game, basically. Unless, like, that's the only cab near you, or you're a masochist. More power to you, honestly. It's a great game. Definitely worth getting into at some point.
Part 3.
Okay, so here's the part where I really get a freaking nerd out. So, you know, like, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, Steam, whatever the other garbage ones are. Yeah, they have that for arcades. Just, like, in Japan until very recently. And nobody freaking told you about it because, like, nobody knows. People think Konami just does, like, freaking pachinko now. But no, they have their own one. And it's called e-amusement. Basically, the way it works is you log into an account and then boom, it saves your stuff. You can look at your heist scores, you can change your settings, and it will save them for the next time you log in. You can do it across multiple cabs, and you can do other cool stuff like rivals, compare your scores against others, worldwide leaderboards. It's freaking sick is what I'm saying, and you should totally invest in it.
But how do you do that?
Presumably you don't literally input your email and password into the cabinet every time like you would on an Xbox. Well, they basically use cards. The way it works is every cab will have a card reader somewhere. You tap the card into it, it'll log in, and depending on the games, Konami games you have to put in a pin, but like Sega games you just, there you go. Originally this was a lot more complicated. Every company would have different designs, different standards, but now basically every company uses the same card spec, so one card will work across basically every game except Groove Coaster, because for some reason Groove Coaster never adopted the new standard. I'm not bitter, nobody's bitter. That's a really great decision, Taito. So what if you want to buy one of these cards? Well, obviously you can go online if you want to, but actually a lot of arcades will sell them in person between $5 to $10. However, if they don't, you're not out of options. If you're like really broke and can't be bothered to buy the card because they're like hard to find or whatever, you can also just get an app on your phone for it. Sort of. Allow me to explain. On iPhones, you can go into Apple Pay, create a Suica card. I think it requires a one-off payment, like a very small amount you have to top up the card. There you go. Put that card on, tap your phone, there you go, you logged in. If you have an iPhone, it's very easy. I don't. I have an Android. What do you do in that instance? There's like this homebrew app you can get, which sort of has the same functionality. You like enable it, tap your phone, and it should log in. I say should, because on my phone it just doesn't. It has a very like hit or miss rate of actually working. I've heard some people say it works perfectly fine and they just use their phone and it's really convenient. And other people like me where it just doesn't. I'd say if you have an Android, it's obviously worth getting the app and trying it out because it's free, there's no reason not to. but it may not work. It's always worth looking into a card as a backup. And obviously, it's nice to have a card for a few reasons, very superfluous reasons, but it's nice to have it. And also, they're just like really fun to collect. I have way too many of them. And lastly, it's worth mentioning, even though basically nobody watching this video will actually need to know this, if you have a phone made in Japan, it'll have Suica built into it. Any Android phone, any iPhone, although iPhone's internationally as well, literally, I think all you have to do is tap the phone and it will work if it is a Japanese model. I'm not in Japan. I don't know many people in Japan who would just, like, watch this video to get into arcades. Maybe there's, like, one or two. But yeah, it is technically a thing, I should mention it, but for most people, I'd say just buy a card. They're not that expensive, and they're neat.
Part 4.
Okay, here's just some basic social etiquette stuff. You're gonna have to wait in line. It's kind of sucks, because obviously if you're at home, you gotta just turn on your Xbox, there you go. No, in arcades, there's only so many cabs. You're gonna have to eventually wait your turn, especially because some games may have 2-player, but most people don't want to play 2-player, they want to be able to pick all 3 of their songs rather than only like 1 out of 3. So how does waiting in line work? Typically there will be a card queue. It's self-explanatory. They line up the cards and then when someone logs in, you move yours forwards. There you go. If there isn't one, because the cab doesn't have any space for it or because nobody thought to, just like wait until the person playing is finished, like when it's the game over screen, and then just sort of walk up awkwardly and be like, hey, can I play? And they'll be like, yeah, sure, man, cool. And then they'll let you play. It's worth noting, everyone, or at least most people, everyone I've encountered, is super chill. Like, you don't have to get intimidated. I remember someone described arcade culture as, nobody's incredibly rude, because you can't say shit to people in person, because they may punch you in the face for it, you know. There is a certain level of etiquette and just basic politeness that people exhibit here, which is really cool. Obviously, there are a few bad actors, and there's a lot of really iffy stuff that's been done. Okay, editor here. I've got more to say about this. I kind of glossed over it. Let's get into it. Okay, so I kind of glossed over this at the time because it sort of contrasted with the tone of the video and I didn't really know what to say necessarily, but I've sort of thought about it and it's like, no, I need to discuss this because ultimately I've seen stuff. I haven't had anything personal happen to me, but I've seen things happen to other people and I think I at least want to have a bit of a caution. Arcades are a public place. In the UK, they're in busy metropolitan areas for the most part, especially in London. Stuff may go down. You may have something stolen. I'm not saying that that's specifically because it's an arcade. No, that just happens anywhere. But it's worth noting, I'm making a video saying, hey, go out and play video games. Which I think, yeah, do that, but be safe. I'd say main things are look out for yourself, look out for anyone who's with you, and look out for your belongings. Stuff can easily get stolen, especially if you're in a busy metropolitan area. If you have a bag, lots of cabs will have areas specifically for bag storage, which are in front, so you will always see it. I would advise against filming by just propping your phone up. That's very easily going to get stolen. If you're going to film, get a friend to do it, or prop the phone up again on the cab where you can see it. Some venues have built-in filming stuff, and they're fine, but obviously it's a bit of a toss-up. Be cautious. It's not worth it to film some gameplay if your stuff may get stolen. It's always worth going with people. If you have friends who also want to go out, try and arrange to go together, always look out for each other. You know, standard stuff there. This may be obvious. You may be like in your 20s and your 30s watching this and this won't concern you as much, but I feel that I really should include this little section here, because if I didn't, I feel like I'd be missing out part of the story. With that being said, sorry about this downer, but yeah, let's get back to the main video. But like, in general, most people you'll encounter are really chill, so don't be scared. And speaking of don't be scared, freaking talk to people. Yeah, this is a social thing. You're going out, it's communal, you're playing video games, and there's other people there. You may as well start talking to them. Make some friends, get known in the community. I think the more people that know you, the more you've done something good. At least, probably. It is very much worth looking into trying to get known in the community, because it feels very good. It's sort of like a very small, tight-knit community, at least in the UK. I don't know how it is in the US. Also, social media. There's a large presence of arcade players on Twitter. There are Discords, in the UK at least, for like general stuff, and also for like a lot of specific arcades have their own Discords. Not everything's super public, but if you've actually gone and played at a location, you will be able to find links pretty easily, and if you can't, again, go and ask someone. They'll probably be like, oh yeah, sure, here's a link. Obviously, don't quote me on this. You can't ask for literally freaking everything and just get it. Sometimes you're gonna have to do a lot of digging. But in general, it'll be pretty easy to find, I'd say, and it's definitely worth it. The Discords are super chill, the Twitter's pretty cool if you're into Twitter. I understand a lot of people aren't. A lot of people aren't into socials, a lot of people aren't into existing in public online spaces, and that's totally fine too. You know, if you have a pre-existing group of friends and you just want to go out, play video games together, and just sort of exist in your own bubble, that's totally fine. Ultimately, the more people who are playing these games is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with just like playing and sticking to yourself or sticking to your friend group. That's fine. No pressure. Just do whatever works for you. I think that's everything. I think I've gone on long enough. This video was kind of just slightly unplanned and very rushed, but I thought it was worth making because I want to have a simple video where you can just link here. Someone's like, what do I do? How do I get into it? You just link to this freaking video and it should explain everything. If there's anything I missed, just like, you know, yell at me or something. I'm freaking no. You know how it works on the YouTubes, on the interwebs. You can leave a comment. You can fart at me on Twitter or whatever. I'm on social platforms. I put stuff out on those way more often. So yeah, obviously I want to do more stuff with this channel, but I'm rambling now and not even about the topic of the video. So yeah, hope you enjoy watching this. If you think someone would genuinely be helped by listening to the information I just presented to you, yeah, send it on. Ultimately, all I want is more people in this community, more people going out to arcades, more people playing these games, because then the arcades get so busy that we need to open new ones, and then new ones open, and then there's more of them, and then there's more people playing, and it just keeps looping until eventually we become the dominant species.
That's never going to freaking happen. I've gone completely insane and rambling. Thanks for watching. I'm picking the mic so hard. Bye.